Yeah, so just started calling the scene function. First parameter is a string, quotes game. So this is the game scene, comma. And then the next parameter is the function, where the code actually goes. So I'm just going to make an arrow function, parens, arrow, curly braces. And make myself some space. Whatever I put between those curly braces, like that's the game scene. That's where that stuff goes. So I'll just take this stuff and put it in there. Or, so I can try it this way too. Basically, I just want to take like the ending of the game scene, I want to move that all the way to the bottom. So maybe I'll do it this way. I'll take those two symbols, the closing curly brace and the parenthesis, and I'm just going to cut them and move them to the bottom. Okay, all good. All right, so Control X to cut. I don't want it to be there anymore. Go after the ending of the add function, and I'll paste there. So just take a look at what the last couple lines look like. It's definitely lots of curly braces and things involved when we have these scenes. If you click on it, you can notice how this ending curly brace corresponds to that opening curly brace. So that's what is the function. That's the body of my function here. And this is the result that we get. So we've defined what the game scene is, but you know, so there must be some other stuff we have to do. Yeah, but at least defined it. So now what I'll do is at the very end of the code again, I'll just make some space. So notice how I am after the closing curly brace and the closing parenthesis. I'm just off in nothing. There's nothing down there. I'll use the go function. So the go function lets you go to a certain scene. I don't see anything because I'm not on a scene, but what would I like to say here? We'll go parens quotes. What scene do I want to go to? Yeah, the game scene. I'll change my mind later, but that works for now. So the first thing it does is it says this is the game scene, and then at the very bottom it says, okay, go there. And I do have teacher code available in the Unit 4 folder, Space Invaders teacher, so that is there. I just saved it. All right, so we defined the game scene, but then we actually want like a main menu with a start button and all that, so let's do that. So we've seen how to make a scene. So toward the top, before I start the scene game, let's start the menu scene. So scene, parens, takes two parameters, a string, menu, for the name of, what is the name of the scene? Because I'm going to have to say go at some point. Yeah, so I'll call this menu. And the second parameter is the function that is what the scene even is. So comma, because I have two parameters. Parens, arrow, braces. This whole thing is an arrow function. And then inside there, that's where I can type some code. Now I can define, okay, what happens if I go to the menu scene? Well, what happens? What should, I want to add some objects. So I'd like a start button. I'm still going to use the add function to like put something on the page. So add parens brackets, the square brackets, because that's just how add works. You add a list of components. All right, what should this start button look like? It'll have a text component with a string, so quotes. I'm going to say start in all caps. And need to add some more components, so comma, pause. I think you always need that. Where should this thing be? Maybe like 200, 200? I don't know. Maybe a color component too. So comma, because I have three things. Add a color component. Let's make it green. So if I want the color green, how much red? Yeah. How much green? Yeah, a whole bunch. And how much blue? I mean, maybe 0 or, I don't know, maybe 50. Just a little bit of blue. That feels about right. Yeah, because I'm just defining, oh, here's what the menu scene looks like. My code still says to go to the game scene though. And remember that computers really don't understand anything that we're saying right here. We said the word menu, but it doesn't know what that means. I said the word start, it doesn't know what that means. These are just letters. Ultimately, they get turned into ones and zeros. The computer has no idea what I'm doing here. When the game, like when I press the play button, what scene should I actually be on? Yeah, it should be on the menu. So let's change that line of code at the very bottom. What should happen immediately? We'll go to menu, actually. No, I get this. There we go. Start button. And what do I want to happen? What am I trying to do? Yeah. I mean, wouldn't we expect that if you clicked on that start button, that it would like start the game? So yeah, we'll try to encode that. So there is I always like to look back here. So there is a like click, it's called OnClick. There is an OnClick function. You know, we've done on key press, on key down, on collide. So there is an OnClick function that will handle whether the user used their mouse and actually clicked on the thing. There's two different versions. It could be for anything or for an object even. We don't really see that though. Or if I have a tag. Let's see if that works. So I'd like to say OnClick with a tag. The problem is my start button doesn't even have a tag. So let's add that. So go back to the add function. It has a text component. But let's also give it quotes. I'm going to say start button. And then a comma, because now I have 4 components. So I need 3 commas between them. But my button has a tag now. And that's going to help the code work. Then the OnClick function will make a lot more sense now. So notice where I'm at after add, but still inside of menu. OnClick takes 2 parameters, a string for the tag name of the thing I'm clicking, and then the function. So quotes. Now what's the tag name? Start button. Yeah. Start button. Notice the camel case, lowercase s, capital B, because it's exactly the way that I did it here. Now, I think if you get a couple of steps ahead, there is going to be an error. We are going to have to fix that error. All right, so OnClick string for the tag name, comma, and then the arrow function for, okay, what happens? You clicked on it, so what do you want to see? Parens, arrow, curly braces. I know there are a lot of symbols, and it's like, what are all these things for? But are you starting to see the pattern of how OnClick looks a lot like OnCollide, looks a lot like OnKeyPress? They all kind of follow a similar shape. They look kind of similar. So even if you don't really know why these are parentheses and what these are for, almost all these functions look kind of the same. So you could hopefully, that's actually what I hope, is that you could copy and paste from somewhere else in the code and just change things. All right, so on clicking the start button, what is the body of the code that should happen? What function do I want here? Go. Yep, go parens, give it a string for the name of the scene, go where? Yeah, go game. On clicking the start button, go game. Yes, and we do get this error. But it might be good to notice anybody get a different error. So I got an error. OnClick requires the object to have area component. Anybody get something different?
Got malformed arrow function.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. I want to see what that looks like.
That's a new one.
Okay. A comma before the parentheses there. So start button. I don't think I've ever read that error message before. So I like to know what they mean. All right, so it is helping us with the solution. It's the fact that we are trying to do this like collision thing, and it doesn't know how to do that. So the start button does need some more components here. We are doing collision. It's with the mouse, but it's still collision. So after color, comma, and then I'll add, just like it's suggesting, I do need to add the area component. Area is like a hitbox. Have you heard the word hitbox before? So usually in video games, every object, like you might care to know whether they've collided with something. So you can have an imaginary like hitbox around them. I can show you what that looks like. When you do an area, that's the hitbox. So for click to work, it needs a hitbox. It needs a collision area. So now, clicking on it actually takes you to the game. Got a start button, and then game starts. Nice. Yeah. What's that? Oh, it did? Okay. Let me see. This might be a good spot to check for things. Now, it seems a little silly in the beginning. It's like, oh, I have a start button or whatever, but it does kind of look nice. But maybe this is the same place where you could pick your ship, like for Space Invaders. You could choose that it should be something different. Maybe you'd rather have a different background on the opening than the game itself. So this at least lets you do that. And double check the tag names. Yeah, and I'd like to have a rectangle, but I'm not sure that we can do that. Let me try. I wouldn't copy this yet. I'm just kind of curious. So rect. I don't think I can do this. I did it before. Would it actually work? No, it actually does work. Okay. I could put like a background behind it. If I had a rectangle first. Yeah, I'll leave that there. So now I'll have you do that. Whether you want to or not, either way. But I did change that start button to the first component is a rectangle. Let's say 100 by 100. It just doesn't look like that, so that's weird. Then it has the text component. That way it lays the rectangle down first. And I guess it just knows to like stretch it out. That's interesting. I'm having one of those moments where I look at a word in English and it just looks weird. Look at this word start. Does that look weird to anybody else? It just looks weird. Like sometimes words in English are just weird looking. All right, so that's the basic idea behind like setting up a scene. You're probably clicking a button to get there, or if you lose, I'm colliding or something, you might go to the lose scene. So we'll set all those things up. That just makes things look a little bit nicer, I think, to have different scenes. If you had different levels, scenes would be an important part of how that would actually work. So that is part one, just making the scenes, getting the basic setup going here. We'll jump into part two. We'll start to play around with it, though we won't fully finish it, of starting to build the aliens. So we want a whole bunch of aliens there. So let's take this platform. So I'm going to go into the game scene. So when I say something like that, you just know to go to the function where that stuff is. If you actually see this, see the little triangles on the left side? That's me, sorry. Gotta update my ringtone. I was in the season. No, I'm definitely not. So if you click on that little triangle, you can actually see how the whole thing collapses. And that's a nifty little tool. So everything from line 22 apparently up to line 39 is part of the game scene. So that can be a little nice when you make your code real small. All right, so this platform right here, I want to convert this into an alien. So let's see, maybe we're going to stick with a rectangle for now, but it'll be a sprite soon enough. So I'm going to make it a square at least, so a rectangle that's 50 by 50. Start to put it toward the top, so maybe the position will also be 50, 50. Should have an area. Probably doesn't need to be solid. I don't know. Curious. I might leave it for now. Let's see. Let's make them green, right? They're aliens. So, red. Maybe have a good green color. I mean, this is going to be like bright lime green. That's a good alien color, right? Put 50 for the blue still. I can't even tell the difference between the start. I mean, now they're the same. Now, we only have one alien, but do you notice anything else that we're probably going to want to change? Yeah. Do we really need the gravity, the physics body for player anymore? I don't think so. I mean, we don't need gravity for sure. So I'm just going to delete that. So const player add sprite beam, pause 50-50, just delete the body. Player really does only need sprite, pause, and area. Yeah, so I mean, we get that for now. Another thing, if we're building aliens, probably a tag would be very, very helpful. So rect in the add function for the whole alien thing. doesn't really matter where. Just say quotes alien. Just make sure to have a comma. I've added another component, so yeah, so it has a tag at least. You can see the hitbox, but I wanted to see like the blue outline when I press F1. That's the hitbox. So I mean, these are all rectangles and stuff, but you can kind of see on Bean. See how that blue box around Bean isn't a circle? It is a rectangle. That's pretty typical. Is that the hitboxes are rectangles or circles. They're just rarely the shape of the thing that you're actually looking at. So here's the idea. If I challenge you to make 50 aliens, what would you do? You'd copy and paste it maybe? So if you would take this code and copy and paste it, what could we do instead? Yeah, let's do a loop. Do a for loop. So let's start to try this, see what we can get. I'm going to put this all inside a for loop basically, so let's do that. Try to remember our idiom. For, so before the word add, for friends.
How many are we making?
Let's do 50. Let I equal 0, semicolon. I less than, no, not less than 10, but I less than 50. Yeah, just change that number. Semicolon, I plus plus. And in some way, shape, or form, you do the next thing. Curly braces. Whatever's inside the braces, that's what repeats. So drop the add stuff in there. Take all the add alien and the closing. Don't forget about the closing. And just drop it right in there. Clean it up with some tabs. Put a tab there. If I select all this stuff, it looks nicer. Tab it over. So if I do this, it actually does make 50 aliens. It doesn't look like it, but they're there. Now, why doesn't it look like it? Yeah.
They're on the same spot.
Yeah, they have exactly the same position. So somehow I would want their position to be a little bit different. But I'm inside a for loop. The whole idea was that I wasn't going to copy and paste and like have 50 different lines to type on. And that's where we usually think variable. What variable helps me here? Any guesses as to what variable?
Position for X and Y.
Yeah. Yeah. And the variable that we have is maybe we want to make a new one is I. We actually only have 2 variables in this whole code, which is kind of surprising. Const player and let I. Those are our only 2 variables. Variables are usually part of our solution. So when we say pause 50-50, maybe if there's a variable in there, we could say pause I, comma 50. See what that looks like. We've usually done that, right? Replaced numbers with variables. So we get that. It's like, okay. Or we could do some math with it. I times 50. We used to say 50, so how about I times 50? Let me get that. So maybe there's more. Or what if it was I times 60? Let me get that. Is it starting to look like we actually have a bunch of aliens? And if we did the same thing for here, then we get that pattern. It's hard to tell, but okay. Yeah. So make sure to save. So we'll see how could we actually use this. But we do have a bunch of aliens. They're just in the wrong spot. That for loop helped us make 50 of them. All right. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you when I see you.